once again to Buffalo Bills pregame. It's the 2015 draft review. We survived a long, tedious weekend with not a lot of excitement, and here we are after the draft, and we have some breaking news. The Bills have signed, once again, Alex Carrington to the defensive line. Analysis.
I'm pretty stoked about this for a couple reasons. I don't want to get too excited because I'm not going to lie, for the last hour I've been pretty ecstatic, but I'll take it down a notch for a couple seconds. Going into this draft, we needed an inside linebacker. We basically had a hole in the defense somewhere. Another interpretation on how the defense could look is us having a hole at defensive end. In other words, if we've moved all the linebackers, or excuse me, all the defensive ends back to linebackers, we would have a hole for the 3-4 starting defensive end. Alex Carrington is a starting defensive end designed for a 3-4 scheme. So in other words, now we can move back both Mario and Hughes and just move Nigel on the inside, and boom, we have our front seven. So since we didn't do anything with that at all during the draft, like 2 hours ago I was not in a good mood. So now I'm in a good mood. So that's the analysis as for now.
It would seem that there are other spots that we needed help with that were not addressed during the draft, and one that's talked about a lot is quarterback. Do you think this means that we have plans for the road? Do you think after working in the same building for so long that Rex Ryan thinks he can get Eli Manning out of New York? Or are we just going to keep on trying to put Band-Aids on that position every year, just signing whichever quarterback got released?
The truth is, I think in the actual draft, where the quarterbacks ended up going and where the Bills were drafting, that's why we didn't get one. I think second round was too early. I think we needed to address a need in the third. And then we could have grabbed, and then we didn't have a fourth. And then Hundley was still available in the fifth, but Green Bay nabbed him, I think, 8 picks before us. I think we would have. I was actually hoping we would have grabbed Brent Hundley actually in the fifth.
Would you expect us to draft a quarterback next year then, expecting not to have a high pick again? Like, what is the quarterback of the future going forward, or just to be determined?
I mean, if Cassel goes to the Pro Bowl, probably not. But
yeah. Or EJ, for that matter.
Okay,
whoever.
Fine. Okay,
we'll
fine.
send whoever,
Sure.
they want.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, if we have no good play, then I can't see us not doing it. But if we, I really can't see us not doing it. But if we have decent quarterback play, even better than Fitzpatrick back in 2011,
if such a thing is possible,
then yeah. All right, let's move on.
So, without addressing the quarterback position, they did start off the draft by going to the defensive back. We did talk about the defensive backfield being an area of need for the Bills, but they said they're going after the top player available, not the position. We may have needed a safety help more than corner help. What do you think of Ronald Darby as a draft, where we picked him?
Well, that's like you said. We need help in the backfield, but not corner. So I was pretty disappointed. I'm still disappointed with the pick. Basically, what we did with our first overall pick is we picked a depth player, and at that point, it would have been really, really, really nice if we had picked a starter. The only reason I don't think we didn't pick a starter is because all the inside linebackers were taken at that point. Eric Kendricks, Brendan McKinney, Stephon Anthony, who I had us picking, they were all gone at that point, and that was not expected.
And there was also a run on offensive linemen early on in the first, or in the middle of the first round.
Right. So basically, to kind of sum him up, he has some speed, he has some good skills, but he's kind of shorter. He didn't really do the greatest of covering in college when he did have the opportunity. So I don't know how this is going to go. I'm not really thrilled with the pick overall, though. That's basically my best summary.
Into the third round, we pick up John Miller out of Louisville, offensive lineman. Good spot to pick up that guard.
Yeah, that's what we were thinking going into this, to get the guard or the tackle in the third round, and I think that's what we did. Now I think we have a decent amount of depth going into it. Now we have Kraig Urbik, we have John Miller, we have Cyril Richardson behind Chris Williams and Richie Incognito. So I think the guard position, in terms of depth and starters, I think we're actually pretty secure, as long as everybody stays healthy. But even if they don't, we got John Miller to come in. I do not think he will go in and be a starter right away. He did start in college for 4 years, and he's a good block arm. guard. Like, you look at his statue, you might not think, he's a big guy, of course, but all linemen are. But you might look at him and you might think, I'm not sure what this guy can do, but he's a good lock arm guy. He gets under you and just, I wouldn't say hold, but, keeps you where you need to be. And I'm looking forward to seeing how he's doing. I do not think he will start, though. But I think he's depth.
Now to pick in the 4th round. In the 5th round, we pick another Florida State player, Karlos Williams at running back. We have no youth at running back. So it makes sense that we drafted someone. What do you think of Karlos Williams?
That's a very good point. Because, like you said, we don't have a lot of youth. I mean, even with the LeSean McCoy thing, some negative people out there were like, oh, he's going to be gone in 2 years. So this pick does address that. One thing I think is very unique is that Karlos Williams also played safety for his first 2 years at Florida State. We still need to fill in the safety role. I know, I'm pushing it. But do I really think it's going to happen? No. Because who wants to be drafted as a running back and then get put in safety? But we've seen it happen before in the NFL. But you know what? I mean, he wasn't even really the starter, actually, down there. So, but he does have some good intangibles. He had 12 rushing touchdowns. He had... last year, not this past year, he had like 8 yards of carry, so kind of Spiller-like if you want to go there. Good acceleration, and at that point in the draft, he was kind of a steal because he was expected to go in the 3rd or 4th, and we got him in the 5th. But again, my negative part, we already have 4 running backs. I mean, yes, you're right, future, but let's pick talent, but let's not overabundance one position.
I think it might be a
You disagree?
I think it's a negotiating ploy as much as anything. You have guys coming up who are getting more expensive veteran contracts and be like, look, we got this kid with comparable production. We can just pay him less. I think the cornerback in the 2nd round might have something to do with that too, with Leodis getting older and going to be demanding more money his next time around. In the 6th round, we went to the outside linebacker position out of Clemson, Tony Steward. What do you know about Mr. Steward?
Not much, and no one really does. He wasn't even expected to be drafted, truthfully. He was listed, of course, but, I mean, there's really no numbers on this guy. He was a backup in college. Now, Matt Cassel was a backup in college, so sometimes that doesn't matter. And he got 3.5 sacks last year, and for a backup, that's not bad. If it was a starter, I'd be like, that's almost nothing. So maybe that's what they saw. Maybe he had a few good plays where they're like, hey, let's go get this guy. But where we got him... I think he's depth. I have no expectations for this guy, honestly.
You got to trust the Bills' scouting staff.
Yeah, and plus he wasn't from Florida State.
Wasn't he? And that's a mark against. In the 6th round, though, we did go back to the Florida State University and picked up Nick O'Leary. What do you have to say about Nick at tight end?
Well, let me ask you a question. Do you like golf?
As much as the next average golfer.
Who is the most famous golfer before Tiger Woods?
Jack Nicholson, of course.
Of course. And as I'm sure you already know this by now, audience, it's his grandson. So, who cares? Honestly, that was
we
kind
might
of
have Jack Nicholls around town, though.
Yeah, I guess, sure. But in terms of football ability, but actually, this guy was another steal. He was expected to go higher, so we got him at a decent spot. I don't know, he got a couple motorcycle accidents character-wise. It kind of makes you think,
Right.
But you know what? I think based on what his fundamentals are, like what kind of a tight end he is, he's more of a pass-catching tight end, and that's what we're looking for. And another way we could use him is as a halfback. He could be like one of those tight end fullback hybrids. Me personally, I'd like to see him more of an ace double tight position because we just got Jerome Felton, so once again, like kind of doubling up on the same position. But at the same time, hey, what if he gets hurt? Then you got someone else who could be in the backfield. So I'm interested to see what they're going to do with him. Like, if we could see some double tight end stuff with him and Charles Clay, like, I'd be pretty psyched about
wing
that.
T, let's go like old school 1920s Army. Play the wishbone.
Yeah, there you go.
Double tight end.
Exactly.
And so then finally in the 7th round, back to Florida State again. Des Lewis. Oh,
No.
Central Arkansas. I'm sorry.
Central Arkansas. This was another steal. Like, actually, not that I'm a Mel Kiper fan or anything, but the very first thing he said was, this was a steal. And another thing I'm happy about with this pick is he's a tall receiver. Well, a taller receiver. He's 6'3". And I mean, between Robert Woods and Sammy Watkins, got all these people leveling around at 6 foot, and they're good receivers, but now we finally got a tall guy, and I don't know what he's going to do. We already have very established receivers, and again, he was 7th round, and again, I think we have too many receivers, so the position kind of is another questionable decision, despite the fact it's a steal. But I am, as a fan, interested to see what this guy could do. I mean, Stevie Johnson was a 7th rounder. There's been other 7th rounders that have come out of the mix and done pretty well. So I'm not really happy that we went overall in the third day that we went running back, wide receiver. I mean, because if you look at the whole thing, we picked a running back, a wide receiver, a guy that pretty much no one's ever heard of, and I guess the only real good pick out of that was the tight end. So, yeah.
And looking at the draft overall, Florida State was in the national spotlight in the playoffs.
Yeah.
We draft E.J. Manuel from there. Do you think they just have the best food at their pro day, or do you think is there a good reason that we're drafting them other than we see them on TV a lot?
I mean, I'm really hoping they went to another pro day besides Florida State. I don't know. I mean, I think one way you could look at it, and I've always said this, is that I think E.J. Manuel, it was really the team that did it. You could say the same thing about Christian Ponder, because he hasn't done anything. But then, so you could kind of think that way towards Jameis Winston and think, well, maybe it's not Winston that really earned the Heisman or whatever, or earned the championship last year. It was the team around him, and that's what we happened to pick. We did happen to pick the team around him.
So, looking over the Bills' draft altogether, and it's right away hard to judge, really, but your knee-jerk reaction, what grade do you give the Bills for the 2015
that's so
draft?
hard. Honestly, if it was 2 hours ago, I would have said C+. I was going back and forth on it, but since the Carrington pickup, I have changed it to a B-, and I will tell you why. I think the philosophy going into this draft was basically not what I wanted it to be, but what it kind of should be. Just get as much talent as you can at the given spots. And I really think that, with the exception of Tony Steward, we did that. We got a lot of, and Darby, we did that with the other 4 picks. Like, we really got either good steals or good people that could start. And I'm pretty excited about the talent that the Buffalo Bills picked up. The reason the grade is as low as it is just because we didn't address tackle, we didn't address linebacker really. We didn't really do anything we really should have done. And I think part of it was based on the order, but, what's your draft grade?
I don't know. I like a C+. I like the optimism of the plus. It always feels better than the B-.
Okay.